This is the Bill Sang Podcast. I am Bill Sang, and I am with some special guests here today. We are going to be talking about family, about life with kids, and life with adult kids for that matter. And I am here with two of the best experts that I know on the topic. You might be thinking about, well, you get them off of Focus on the Family or that Family Life Ministry. No, they had 6 kids of their own, so I think that qualifies them, and they're all still alive. Confirmation, I'm going to check with Nicki on that one. All the kids are still alive, right?
Yes, alive and well. Thank you very much.
There you go. That's all the confirmation we needed right there. All the children survived. They are graduated now, is that right? Are they graduated from college, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they're all graduated from college now and living out in the world. And so I'm going to be talking to Rex and Nicki about how they did it, more or less. To start off here, how long have you guys been married? Who wants to answer this one?
Oh my, we'll be married 32 years in November.
And that's a entirely other topic in itself, I think, is that's incredible just to be married for so long and to still love each other and to be together, especially in this day and age. And Rex, this question's for you. You're probably quite the expert as far as families and kids and all of that. If I'm not mistaken, you had a fairly large family. So how many kids were in your family growing up, and where did you fall in the pecking order?
I am the 14th out of 15 kids, so 10 girls and 5 boys.
So you know a few things about growing up with children, with particularly with older brothers and sisters, for that matter. So let's get right into the topic then. So what is it like raising 6 kids?
I could say 2 things: busy and noisy.
And I don't think that anybody's going to have a hard time understanding what we mean by busy and noisy, as we just had my 2 children in here with us. And my goodness, I'm surprised we're able to record right now. So, Rex, what's your experience been? What is it like raising 6 kids?
Being one of 15, it really wasn't that hard.
That makes total sense.
I can honestly say is once you have 4 kids, when you add a couple more, you really don't notice.
So how did you have all these kids in your home and prevent them from killing each other?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of it is we kept them busy. I mean, being on, living out in the country, they could find a lot of things to do. I think I can only count one time, and this is when they were a little older, where the older 2 got a little bit rough, a little bit more serious than I would care to see. But they really support one another when it's somebody else out to pick on them. Let's put it that way. Yeah, but if they're going to pick on each other, yeah, it's all game on. But if you are going to pick on one of theirs, yeah, it's not going to happen. They're going to protect their own. Very
much like the old saying, nobody picks on my brother except for me type of thing. Do you have any do you remember any stories like that?
I think there was a time that one of our kids had trouble with somebody on the football team. And if I remember right, I think that his older brother went in and took him out. I didn't take him out. Stood up for him because, his brother just kind of took care of things. But probably the one thing I would say, though, is what I've liked. We have 5 boys and a daughter. What I've liked is having a son that is just a couple years older than our daughter. Hearing things about these boys that were in school with our daughter. And he could fill us in, let's just put it that way, on things about people that she may potentially date, which she didn't date a lot in high school. And I think you could probably figure out why with having 5 older brothers. So
on that topic, real quick, and I'll toss this one over to Rex here. What are your children's names? And what are your children's names? We'll go with that.
We got Josh, who's 30. We got Alex, who's 29. Corey, who's 27. Seth, who's 25. Noah, who's 23, and Kara, who's 21. And so the first 2 are a year apart, the rest are 2 years apart.
And what are they all up to these days?
So there's Josh, who is 30. He works for my brother, actually, at a lumberyard, and he does everything that needs to be done, from deliveries. They do farm equipment. He delivers that. He helps him with his rentals, just things like that. He's basically his personal assistant. A lot of freedom in the job. He really likes what he does. So Alex, he works out of Columbus. He's a mechanical engineer. Corey, he lives down in Marysville, and he gets to work from home, but his job is in Columbus also, and he does software, things of that nature. Seth just took a new position as a maintenance guy at the Riverdale High School, so he's going to be working there. And then we got Noah. He is literally going to be getting out of the Navy in like 3 or 4 more days. He'll be coming home. And then Kara, she just finished schooling for nursing, and she will be taking her boards.
That's absolutely incredible. And good job remembering all those, Rex. That's really impressive. A lot of people to keep track of. And that's quite a diverse range of careers that your children have taken upon. And it's very impressive. How did you shepherd all these different personalities and all these different interests and to direct them to the way that was best for them?
One thing I better not let out, Seth did go to college and he dual majored in accounting and finance, but he chose not to do. They worked in the field for a while and realized that's not what he wanted to do. So he realized that he wants to be more hands-on and do that kind of thing.
Well, it's funny you say that, because when you first get started, like Josh, he really was our guinea pig. I mean, they go to high school and they're really pushed to go to college, right? And, Josh really made a very mature decision. He loved playing football. That's really all he did in high school was play football. And he could have played here at the University of Findlay, but he realized that he wasn't going to be in the NFL. He realized that he didn't know what he wanted to go to school for. So instead of going to college just to play football and rack up student loans, he decided he would go ahead and go out on his own. And that's when he started working for Darrell. And Darrell actually recruited him, asked him, hey, what are you going to do? What are you going to do after school? He's like, well, I don't know. And so that just kind of blossomed from there. And it really taught me a lesson that it's not all about college, because that's what I did when I got out of school. I went to nursing school as well. And so to me, it was kind of like a letdown, like, am I really steering him in the right direction? But he, is doing wonderfully. I mean, he wants to be his own boss, and I know he will be, as a lot of our kids want to be their own boss. So, and then with Alex, we knew he was going to go to college because that was his goal of always being straight A student and just things like that. And so we're proud of all our kids, the way they went, but that's what he wanted to do. And then, with the other ones, it's just, you let them make the decision. So like I said, we cut our teeth on Josh and Alex. And then with the other ones, we just learned, and I ain't gonna lie, it's an honor to have your daughter go into the same profession as you did. I thought that was pretty sweet, but I never really encouraged it necessarily. I think she just kind of took that route, and just really, really proud of her as well. But like I said, proud of all of our kids, proud of Noah for serving in the military. I mean, such a sacrifice. We've learned a lot through that as well. So, and Seth, he's just, it's funny, I think he's finally finding what he wants to do. I know when he said he wanted to do accounting and sit behind a desk, I knew that probably wasn't what he really wanted to do, but I think at the time that's what he felt he should do. And so I guess you let your kids learn sometimes from the decisions they make. You have to let them be responsible, and when they come to you, yes, definitely give them advice, definitely guide them. But when they want to make those decisions, that's their decisions to make.
I find that very impressive, because like you said, there's an awful lot of pressure on children. I like your transparency as well as saying that the first two were the guinea pigs. So Josh, Alex, there you go. But no, I think there's a lot of the parents probably feel a lot of pressure regarding the decisions of their children, as oftentimes your children are a reflection of who you are as parents as well. And so you don't want them turning out wrong.
One thing we did with the kids is we never said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Our question was, how do you want to live when you grow up? Because if you're a woman, you want to have kids, you probably don't want to pick a field where you're going to be away from your kids all the time. Because then once you get your schooling, you get all done, then you're saying, well, I really don't want to be a stay-at-home mom and waste my education. So they start feeling guilty that way. So we encourage people to do something that'll work into how they want to live. And if you want to live a certain lifestyle, you don't pick a job that's mediocre and you're not going to make much money, you know. But if you want to be a servant to God and different things, you want to pick the ministry, things like that, you understand you're probably not going to make a lot of money right out the gate. So you got to understand how you want to live and how you can serve people that way. So we encourage the boys, do something you like to do, but what makes money isn't always fun to do. If you want to make good money, you probably are going to do something that most people don't want to do. You got to realize how you want to live and what you want to do.
It's not so much what you do, it's the results of what you do. So, you know, if you want to live, you know, you want a certain kind of house, car, how many kids you want to have, then look at that and then reverse engineer to see, okay, what can I do to get to that point? So
I think that's very good advice right there. I think that's one of the problems a lot of people, one of the challenges a lot of people have is knowing exactly what the right way to direct their children and finding the career that they want. Because you got to ask yourself, do you really want the job that's fun, that you're passionate, that you're just totally passionate about, or do you want to live a certain type of lifestyle? And I think that either way, I think that answering that question for yourself is very important.
Right. One thing I meet people, you know, we got Findlay University right over here. We see a lot of equestrian people. And I always tell people, if you're doing something that other people will do for free because it's fun, you're probably not going to make much money at it. Because people love horses and it's what they do on the weekends and things. So there's not going to be much money when it comes to training horses and things. You're going to usually make minimum wage or somewhere around there.
Yeah. So that's very good. So what did your family like to do for fun as your kids were small, as they were little?
Oh, having 5 boys, they always wanted to be out in the yard playing, and football was the sport they wanted to play all the time. Even when we were supposed to be working, they would want to be out playing. So that always didn't work out well with us. But one thing we really enjoyed doing, we had a camper when they were little, and we loved to go camping. And we started getting busy with sports and things, so you'd do tournaments, different things like that, and it was hard to go camping because then you'd have to go to the sporting events. And so my sister one day told me, her kids are a little older, she said, if you want to know where your kids are at when they're older, build a pond. Dig a pond, because they said you won't have to worry about there. They'll all be at your house swimming, and their friends will be there with them, so you won't have to worry about them. And that's what we ended up doing. And what we realized is, what we had at the pond, we had a place for a campfire, we had swimming, we had things like that. So that was everything they wanted to do when they were camping. So we didn't need to camp anymore. We had it all at home, and then they could invite their friends over and things like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they really like the sports, and part of having boys is that you may have a few hospital visits from time to time, and it was all good. But no, they really did. And the other thing is, we have, like, with having a big family and Rex having a big family, they love to hunt, and so like they're really, I like to call him their grandpa. It was really kind of like their grandpa, for sort of speak, but he would take them hunting and things like that, and they love that too. So it was that, and playing, and cousins and everything. I think family, I think people wonder sometimes, why have a big family? Why do you have 6 kids? I mean, it's crazy. And how do you give them all the same attention and things like that? You hear that a lot. And it's like, you know what? I think you gave the best blessing you can give your family is a lot of kids, because those are the memories you make, and everything that you do with them is pretty amazing. So
as far as I can tell, your kids have done the right things. They've stayed on the right course. They're good people. How did you achieve that?
Well, I think the first thing is being a good example, because I know, and Rex can, kind of go a little farther on this, but I mean, you need to be the example, not just tell them not to do something and then you turn around and do it. They're not going to, and that goes for anybody, they're going to look at what you do, not what you say. So I think that was the first thing. And then I think a lot of it is just teaching them respect, teaching them discipline, and coming from a big family, you see, you don't want to lose respect of your elders. You don't want to lose respect of your grandparents, things like that. And that was something we really tried to instill in them.
We've all said, when I get older, I'm never going to tell my kid because I said so. But sometimes you have to do that. And they said, use an example. I said, if you let a dog off a leash and let it run for days, and then when you try to tie it up, it'll do anything to break that chain to get away. Kids are the same way. You just got to tell them no sometimes. You know, they want to go to their friends, so you can't let them go to their friends every night. You have to say stay home. Why? Because I said so. You know, but in reality, it's just to keep them grounded. You know, just so they don't run free and get that taste of just the freedom where they never have to be. It's hard to rein them back in, if that makes sense.
And what I'd like to say to that is that's why I'm so glad that God made two parents, right? Because you have to be you're not divided. You have to be joined together, because you know how kids are. If you ask mom and mom says no, or if you ask dad and then, you know, you switch thing and see who you can get yes from, right? And, you know, and that's very true what Rex is saying, because, you know, my personality, I don't like a lot of conflict, so I would always be like, well, go ask your dad, you know, so he can take care of it. But you know, that's the thing. You're not doing your kids any favors by not sticking up for them in that respect. When you know that they should not be going to a certain place, even though everybody in their, you know, grade is going there or something of that nature, everybody in their class, you know, you got to realize that, you know, the atmosphere there is not a good atmosphere. And really the atmosphere, it is kind of what it really is, what develops your kids. It's really whatever they're exposed to. So I can't say we necessarily shielded them from certain things, but, you know, we let them, you know, live and learn to a certain extent, but we definitely wanted to keep them in an atmosphere that was going to be positive for them.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the hard things that parents struggle with, is that you know, you use the word freedom. Don't let them have too much freedom. It's like, don't let them have too much freedom. That's crazy. Well, they're children. They don't have the experience. They don't have the wisdom, and they haven't met enough people until a certain point in their lives to be able to say, ooh, I don't think that this is right for me to be there. So sometimes, like you say, you got to put the kibosh on it and say, nope, not going over to so-and-so's house, or nope, you're not allowed to do that, or you're not allowed to watch that. Yes. And Rex, I think that's absolutely right. Sometimes it's okay to say, because I said so.
Yeah, as far as disciplining our kids, I had my oldest kid one day say, it's tough being a Frey. And I said, absolutely it is. You know, we expect a lot out of our kids. Freys expect a lot. He said, well, they all have nice houses and thing, and too much is given, much is expected. And we provided a good life for our kids, but they had to earn it too. When we dug that pond, I told my kids multiple times, I said, if you want to play, you got to pay. You know, you can't go out and do all these other fun things. You know, it costs money to keep dig the pond and to keep the place maintained, and keep it up, pulling weeds and different things, because people are coming over the house and we want it to look nice, you know. So
I think that's great. And no, that's very good. That's very good right there, because I think that just emphasizing what discipline looks like, even I like that example of digging a pond and the work that goes into doing that. I mean, it teaches your kids how to earn something and how to respect what it is that they've literally built. So that's fantastic. So this is going to be a little bit of a different sort of question. So it has to do with just the overall health of your family, eating habits, exercise, whatever it is. And I think this is one of those, especially this day and age, people are a little more sedentary with video games, television. Television's nothing like it used to be. Even it's not like you wait for your program to come on anymore. You just, you click the app, open up to see where your show is, click the show, and you can binge watch it for 8 hours straight, maybe longer if you want to. But how did you keep your family healthy, active, in shape, what have you, however you would word that? You know what I'm saying.
Well, a lot of it is, our kids were very competitive. It doesn't matter if you were playing tiddlywinks or checkers or, you're outside playing football. It was always competitive. And I don't know where they get that from. They don't get that from me. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, But anyway, so it was easy for that route. Now, granted, we did have some video games, not a lot, because I know, Rex would be like, it's too nice of a day out, shut them things off, let's go, that type of thing. So they had their fair share. But living on a farm, it's very easy to go out and find something to do. That's for sure. And then when it came to eating, I learned a lot from Rex's mom. I mean, she really taught me how to cook a lot of things, especially things that he liked. My mom cooked some, but it wasn't a lot. And I'm not trying to throw my mom under the bus or anything, but we just had our certain things. And so I broadened my horizons when I met Rex. In fact, he taught me a lot of cooking skills as well. So we did a lot of that. We cooked at home and things like that. But yeah, the kids were in sports. They really started from T-ball on up and just the different things. So that was very easy to keep them entertained that route. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Rex.
Yeah, so cooking, I taught her how to cook so I didn't have to, basically. But as far as keeping our kids healthy, one thing we learned is motor sports like four-wheelers and go-karts get put away when people come over, because you realize that other kids don't know how to drive them like you. Like if you've been driving them, you know what you're doing. You've already been through the trials and tribulations. Yeah, but once they learned how to run four-wheelers and go-karts, it wasn't a big deal to jump on the tractor and run that either. So I always taught my kids little how to do them things, because it's good to know. And, teaching them, always making them go outside to work and help and do things like that. It's always great when your kids come home and thank you. And one day we got a call from Noah when he was in the Navy, and he said that he said, thanks for making me go outside. I'm the only one allowed to back the jet in the hangar, because he said nobody else can do it because it would back up like a wagon, and they didn't know how to do it. So he was the only. They all told him to do it because they didn't want to, a multi-million-dollar jet. They didn't want to mess it up. So he was always the one to do it. So he said, thanks for making me go outside and work.
Yeah.
I would never have made that connection between backing up a wagon and backing up a jet. So if you're thinking about going into the military, you might want to check out Farm Life. All right. So having said that, what are the challenges and the advantages to raising your children?
Growing on a farm, out in the country, things like that, when you do have a lot of tractors and things around, you just want to make sure nobody dies, but you look out for those things, and that helps you out in life too. And you learn how to, when you work on things, some people call it common sense. I think it's life experiences you learn, and you can translate them throughout life, as you go on. But we didn't farm. We have farm land that Nicki's brother farms part of one, and I got cousins that farm the other one, but they've always been around it. They've always had access. And then the neighbor baled hay, so they would be down there baling hay with him and things of that nature.
I would say one of the challenges is that we lived about 10 miles from town. So with doing sports and things, that was a little bit of a challenge. And let's just say when Josh got his license, we were very ecstatic. We're like, yes, he can start being the chauffeur. But yeah, I think that being able to be out like we were out in the farm life, being able to teach your kids how to troubleshoot. I mean, they really did learn how to do a lot of stuff. I mean, my daughter, our daughter, I should say, is, really good at that too, just because she's been around it as well. I mean, I think the one day Rex can maybe fill the blanks in for this, but I think she was in the backhoe at age 8 or something like that, and some guy came over. You can tell the story. He was like so surprised that, oh my gosh, your daughter's up in the backhoe? What? And I don't remember. You can tell the story, Rex, better than I can.
I would hook up the logs, and I would have her raise up the loader and back it up or pull forward if I need to. I mean, none of the major stuff, but I think she might have been 5 or 6. It was a little bit younger than 8, but yes, we definitely. We do not. They're just not too young. It's the responsibility. It's maturity, really. It's not. There's not an age on when you can start babysitting. It's a maturity thing. And like Nicki was saying earlier, I think that the 2 best times when you have kids is. First one is the day the oldest is old enough to babysit the younger ones, and the second is when the oldest one is old enough to drive, so they can take them to ball practice.
Lots of life lessons there. So, what are the challenges of having children that are grown up, most of them out of the house.
Well, I think one of the things is holidays is because, I used to be able to say, okay, we're going to have it this day, and it just worked out fine. It was just our kids. And now it's like, okay, two are married, so we have to look at their side and when they're going to have things. So just communication, I think, is huge. I think, having more, less communication, or I'm supposed to say more communication is better than less. We've got 2 daughter-in-laws, soon to be 3 daughter-in-laws, and now a little grandbaby. So just learning how to fit all that in, be able to see everybody and things like that. So that's kind of the bigger challenges. Yeah.
How do you keep your children from going off the deep end?
I think a lot of it goes back to atmosphere, like we talked about. It's good to know who your kids are hanging out with. And I think, that starts young. That starts, when they start going into school. And because, it seems like everybody's having parties all the time, different things for whatever it is, when they're little, birthday parties, and eventually it gets the boy-girl parties. And that was always when that first started, that was interesting. Because our one son, actually it was Alex, I believe it was at a boy-girl party, and we realized that there was not a parent there.
Oh, wow.
And needless to say, I got in the car. Actually, Josh was driving at that time, but he didn't have his license yet. So we gave him some driving time. I sat with him. I was kind of talking to him why we were doing this on the way. And then I'm thinking, wait a minute, isn't this the thing that the dad's supposed to talk to about the boys, not the mom? But anyway, we got to talking because I think it was really uncomfortable for Josh because he's like, can't dad tell me this stuff, But anyway, and we picked up Alex and talked about the same thing all the way home. So I think a lot of it, it starts with the atmosphere and who your kids are around. And I'm not going to say our kids were perfect angels. I mean, you hear things later on that they tell you after the fact, and we can laugh about now. But, at the time, I probably would have been very upset. But yeah, and again, example, I think it really does affect how you live your life. Their kids see everything, even when they're little. I mean, when they're just babies, they start to learn. They learn about you, and you have a big responsibility to be the best example you can be for them. I don't know if you want to add anything, Rex.
So you can't very well tell your kids not to drink if you come home every day and grab a beer out of the refrigerator after work. Like Nicki said, they learn from example, not from what you say. It's not do as I say, not as I do. It's the opposite way. But one thing, we used examples around us. We seen kids screw up, and it gave us a way to talk to them and say, this is why you don't do that. This is why you don't do what they did, because this will happen. And you lay out the results of what's going to happen in their life if they do go off the deep end, like you were saying. And that's why we use them examples of just throughout life, all along, from when they were little to when they get older. Say what's going to happen. I remember having a story with my Corey when he said, I think I'm going to take the 2 weeks off before I go to college. And I laid it out on the line. I said, okay, you take 2 weeks off, because our kids paid their own way through college. When you make them pay, they tend to get a little bit more out of it than when somebody else is paying for it. They respect it more. But I told him, I said, okay, so if you don't work for these 2 weeks, this is the amount of money you make. Okay, now you take out a loan, you're going to be paying interest on that money. And I said, now this is how much it's really going to cost you because you took out a loan. So I said, but if you work for those 2 weeks, you can pay for it. Now look how much money that turned into. And I said, so what are you going to do? And he says, I guess I'm working. So I didn't have to tell him he had to work. I just had to show him the example of what it was. But the other thing is, what we learn is, if you treat somebody like a criminal, they're going to act like a criminal. And if you treat them like they're respectable, they're going to act respectable. So that's the high expectation thing. They knew what we expected, and they live up to it. And you see kids that go down the wrong path, I guess you want to say, but it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that happens at a younger age. And I had a friend of mine say, you are so lucky that your kids have turned out good. And I said, it took a lot of work. It wasn't. It was something that was constant. You can't just give up and throw your hands in the air and think that I mean, what's the book that was written? It takes a village to raise a kid, or something like that. Well, it takes a village to report to you back what your kid's doing when you're not seeing it, and then you handle it and things. And our kids were disciplined, and I've had people. You today, psychiatry and all this stuff, they say you shouldn't spank your kids. You should never lay a hand on your kid. But I was told if you have a centerpiece on your coffee table, you put it up until they're old enough to know better. I said no. When they pull it down the second time, you slap their hand and you say no, and they learn not to do it. And they say no, you never touch a child. I said, so when I take that kid over to somebody else's house, now they just might have broke their glass coffee table or something because they thought it, but I could have taught them at home not to do it. Now you're telling me to put it aside and wait till they're old enough to know better. Well, they learn at a young age at our house, and it works. It's work that's in the Bible. That's what we follow,
That's an excellent illustration, I think. And my goodness, that's a great segue too, actually, because our next question was going to be, so you're a strong Catholic family. You go to church on Sundays, and I don't want to answer the question for you with the things I say, but your faith plays a pretty big role in your life, and it's played a role in both of your families' lives, both before you met each other, and now that you're married, and now that you have children. Correct me if I'm wrong. It plays a big role in their lives as well as from what I can notice. How has your faith as parents helped you to overcome these challenges that you've encountered with your children, be it disciplinary or culturally, or even as you said, like with the teaching them about finances and school and stuff? Go ahead.
Right. So what I've come to learn is all Christians are trying to do the same thing, whether you're Catholic, Lutheran, Protestant, whatever it is. Sure, there's some extremes out there, but we all are striving for the same goal, to get to heaven. And you're supposed to evangelize and get as many people there and bring as many people along as you can, to teach them who Jesus is. And I think Catholics sometimes they become dead in their religion, and they just go through the routines. They don't understand what the true teachings are. And if they really get back to their roots and why we do the things they do and why it was founded the way it was, people will be very surprised. Yeah. So yeah, we never miss church. One reason is because if you miss 1 week every month, every 2 months, when your kids get older, they're going to miss 2 weeks because they remember the parents missing church. So we've always heard they'll do half as much of the good and twice as much of the bad. So
it's a good rule.
So we never miss church, and we've always been a good example. So when it comes to sports, that's one thing great about being Catholic. We have church on Saturday night. We have different church times. You can go different places and it's all the same readings out of the Bible. Everything's the same, so it's consistent. So we always made sure that church was a priority. And as we know, a lot of these sports now, they do it because there's so many, they got to fit them in, they overlap God's day. And we made sure that we got to church at no matter what every weekend.
And I have to interject as somebody who is a minister that, and I hope that I'm not you two, but I hope that it doesn't step on any, I take that back. I hope it does step on people's toes a little bit, come to think of it. When I hear parents say that there's sports on Sundays, we can't make it to church because Johnny has a football game or Sally has a soccer game. I love sports. I grew up doing sports, and at what point do we say, you know what? They can do their sport on that day, and especially in the little leagues. Especially in the little leagues, it's like, well, yeah, they have a game on Sunday or Saturday. You know what? I guess they're just going to have to miss that particular game and catch up with them on the next one. Because Rex, you're absolutely right. I think that what grounds us all in everything that you've talked about so far, both of you, it's been because of faith, because of guidance, because of our parents instilling in us a seriousness, a reverence for God that directs us in how we should do things. And you even mentioned just of all things about spanking, biblical. It's biblical. It's something. It's not because we want to. We have this desire to spank our children. It's because the Bible teaches us if you spare the rod, you hate your child.
And just when you go to the gym and work out, when you're done the next day, you're in pain. And no pain, no gain, they always say. And sometimes it takes a little pain to discipline a kid to keep them on the straight and narrow.
And I heard that a popular saying not too long ago was, I was drugged to church, as in they were dragged. So
that's another thing we didn't teach our kid that it was a chore to go to church, that it was you go to church because you want to go, not because you have to go, and you get out of it what you put into it. And I actually learned to embrace my Catholic faith more of reading the Bible during the week and following the scripture and what's in there.
Well, I think too is change is such a scary thing, but in order to grow and help your family grow, it takes change and it takes action. It takes action on a daily basis of building your faith. It's not just going to church every Sunday, because you do have those people that, if you had the attendance chart, they'd have the sticker on every Sunday that they're there, and that's great. You want them there. We want them there. But the fact is what are you doing outside of that to build your faith? So that's what I've learned, and that's coming from other denominations too. I think you can get stagnant. You can get in a rut, and then that's when you feel like, oh, I got to go to church again. I wish I could sleep in today, but instead it's that fact that we get to go to church. We get to practice our faith. We live in America. We have the freedom to practice.
You always hear the family that prays together stays together. Praying's not enough. It's a complete package. You have to live it, and you have to be an example. And it takes discipline to live the right way in front of your kids, and everybody falters. We do the best we can at the time. At the time you're doing the best you can, and you learn and you make mistakes and you apologize and you correct things.
Yeah, there's that D word, discipline again. But no, that's very important for living out a life that's consistent. So last question here. And it's been a great conversation so far, and sometimes as parents you look back on things, you think, maybe I could have done this better, or maybe I could have done that differently. And what have you learned along the way as parents? And then to bounce off of that, what would you do differently then as well? So what have you learned along the way, and what would you do differently in retrospect?
Well, first of all, I would just like to say that thanks so much for having us on. This has been really enjoyable. It's really made us bring back some memories, and which are good. That's really good. And to answer your question, I believe that God's grace has really been the whole umbrella of our life. He forgives us, he gives us, that grace, and we're able to, gives us guidance for that. And in turn, our kids have that grace so they can learn from that too, because we are by no means perfect parents. I think you've probably figured this out by the time you get done listening to this podcast. But probably one of the things I would change, what I've learned that, you got to roll with the punches, that's for sure. But one thing that I would change is that my thing was, especially when the kids were little, I didn't really make them do certain things. I would ask them to do certain things, like maybe help do the dishes or pick up their toys or do whatever. And a lot of times they would, they're kids. They're going to do the least amount they have to do, right? And that's okay. But I really didn't force the issue. I just went ahead and did it because, one, I wanted it done a certain way. And, that's partly my personality. But looking back, I wish now I would have let them do that. And I tell them now, I say, look, I screwed up. I said, when you were little, I should have made you do more. So as you start having kids, believe me, it will be a great idea for you to let them do chores, have responsibilities. Even when they're 2, 3, 4 years old, they can start doing things. And, for me, I just did it because I knew it was done right. And in the end, I missed out because they were all in the other room having fun and doing different things. And here I am out working, and I could hear Rex from the other room saying, "Where are you? Come in here with us." And here I am out still doing dishes where, we could have had them help, that type of thing. So that's probably one thing I would have changed. And I'm just very, very grateful for our family. We are truly blessed, and all of our kids. We're proud of all of our kids, and we, love them all. People say, well, how can you, I had, actually, this is kind of funny. One of our friends said she's pregnant with her second child, and she said, I'm kind of nervous. How do you love more than one kid? And I'm kind of like, well, it's really easy. You love your kids, you love them all the same, but it's in different ways. You show it in different ways. And, but yeah, we're just so blessed with our kids. We're so excited, for them as they start getting married and having kids of their own, and being able to kind of sit back and be like, ha, I remember these days. But yeah, we're just really, really blessed and just really, really grateful.
Is different kids have different personalities. So you have to learn. Some need praise, some need more discipline. Kids, some people just need approval. What's the Bible say about sins of a father will be passed down of the 7 generations, something like that? You have to understand what you grew up with. One of the biggest things I noticed, it happened with me, I noticed my daughter mentioned it before, and that is when you finally learn that your family is not perfect. Anyway, so trying to do the best you can do. Our son one time got mad when we weren't home, and he threw a shoe through the wall and put a big hole in the drywall. And he was so scared to tell me, and he thought, Dad's going to kill me. He didn't know what to do. So we were actually in Columbus. We were driving home, and it took 10 minutes to get it out. And I said, now, wasn't that easy? Or, I said, wasn't that easier? And he said, no. And I didn't have to discipline him. He punished himself enough, by going through that. So, you do your best, and you trust that you raised your kids right. And sooner or later, you got to let them go out and live the experiences themselves. And you can't follow them around like a helicopter parent. So you do the best you can, and just trust that you did it right, and let them go out and live their life and make their mistakes. Yeah, you just can't live in fear. We teach them, do not live in fear. Go, just go for it. If you fail, you fail forward. So many parents don't want to see their kids fail, but you got to understand, you're not in the middle, and failure's to the left and success is to the right. You're on the left. You have to go through failure to reach success.
Very good, very good. We mentioned discipline quite a few times, and I think that's a very important aspect of everything that you all talked about, but also some of the lighter things, though, too. A lot of talk about grace and God's grace, and ultimately trusting in God's timing and God's provision, His guidance of us through our lives and helping us to parent, and humility. Humility wasn't necessarily a word that we brought up, but I think that being a parent is a very humbling thing, and it teaches you that you can't control everything, and it teaches you that, like you said, Rex, that sometimes you have to go through failure to make it success. Not sometimes, probably every time to find success on the other side. And when you mentioned about fear, I think that's something that parents go through a lot too. They're afraid they're going to mess up. They're afraid they're going to make the wrong decisions for their children or guide them the wrong way. And I think that that's one of the takeaways tonight, and exactly why we had you on, though, too, is to show that there are no such thing as perfect parents, but you can do your best, and you can trust in God's grace and have faith that things are going to turn out well. And the whole topic of fear, we were discussing it kind of off air. That's going to be an entirely different episode altogether, because we could go on and on about that. But I think that fear even prevents people from having children, for that matter, too. I know lots of people that don't have children, don't want to have children. and a big roadblock for them is fear. But like I said, that's another day, I think, as far as that's concerned. But I'd like to thank you guys so much for being on. I think that the listeners out there are really going to take a lot away from this conversation here. And again, I'm with Rex and Nicki Frey, and this is the Bill Sang Podcast. And if you like this episode of the podcast, please share it with your friends. I think that if you know somebody that it could be useful for, share it with them. Or play it for them, and they can listen to it, have lots of good takeaways, and hopefully we'll be able to help people out and change people's lives through it. So Rex, Nicki, again, thank you so much. And again, this is the Bill Sang Podcast. I am Bill Sang. Thank you for joining us.
They was calling out to me. Play those Black Swan blues, boys. You gotta play it to the bone.